So I'm Father Sinclair, Oubre. I am a merchant mariner myself. And what I want to share with you is a little bit of history of one of the other ships that were at Hungnam. And this story begins for the Robin Gray, actually on the SS Cape Chalmers at a shipyard in Port Neches, Texas. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, it sent waves crashing into the U.S. Merchant Marine and exposed our readiness failures. Vessels in our reserve fleets that were managed as if they were never going to be called back into service, suddenly we had dozens of ships needed to be activated and ready to take on cargo in the 30 days, as was their reserve status. Well, if anyone remembers that time around 1990, most of those ships were not maintained in the 30-day activation level. And when they were called up, it can only be described as a cluster. As the shipping demands of Desert Storm began to moderate, the Maritime Administration wanted to activate the old Likes Line vessel from the Beaumont Reserve Fleet and transfer over to the James River Reserve Fleet. I believe the thought was to do a systematic activation of the SS Cape Chalmers and carefully record the challenges. The hope was that the chaos of late 1990 and early 1991 could be avoided in the future. Now, the SS Cape Chalmers was originally the 1963 Sparrow Point-built SS Adabel Likes. She was retired in 1984 and placed in the Beaumont Reserve Fleet. When she was activated in October of 1991, the boatswain was E.K. Bryan, who was a longtime Seafarers International Union member. He was unique among the boatswains. He never yelled. He never whistled at the deck crew. Rather, he called us to attention by his hand signals of pointing and moving things around, and we responded accordingly. And when he was happy, he always would Cajun dance across the deck like he was at Gillies, and if you remember the old urban cowboy movie. We sailed for the James River Fleet, and on the way stopped in Tampa for some engine repairs, and we arrived around Wednesday, November 13th in 1991. While we were together, E.K. shared that he had been on the Robin Gray during the Hungnam evacuations. A couple of years later, E.K. retired from the SIU and started an RV park in Seguin, Texas, which is along Interstate 10 just before you get to San Antonio on the east side. On my trips down to I-10 to San Antonio, I would pass Seguin, exit, and stop by and say hello to him. And on one of these trips, I specifically asked E.K. to share his memories of December 1950. And so later in this presentation, I will share with you the notes that he left me then. The Robin Gray. Well, the Robin Gray was built in 1919. And there was also a 1943 Robin Gray. As I began to write this presentation, I found reference to the fact that the SS Robin Gray was at Omaha Beach on D-Day. And she was scuttled on Omaha Beach to be part of the Mulberry Harbor walls there, which then struck me of, now how was this 25-year-old ship, which was scuttled as part of Mulberry Harbor A off Omaha Beach, salvaged, and 6 years later was able to participate in the evacuation of Hungnam? The answer, it wasn't. In 1942, the Ingalls Shipbuilding in Pascagoula, Mississippi, which is a side note, the first merchant ship, because I began actually working on offshore vessels out of Cameron, Louisiana, but the next summer I sailed for Sabine Transportation, and they had the Guadalupe, and the Guadalupe was at Pascagoula Shipyard in 1978. She was a 1944 T2 tanker that had been jumboized, stretched about 150 feet in Pascagoula, and so I was assigned there as a saloon messman on that ship when she was coming out of the shipyard. And so there was a part where I could stand with 1 foot in 1944 and 1 foot in 1978. Anyway, she was built, as I said, in 1942, the Ingalls Shipbuilding in Pascagoula began building the cargo ship SS Seahawk. The Seahawk was launched on February 25th, 1943, and engaged in builder's trials. And this is the photograph of her at that point. She was acquired by the Navy on April 30th, 1943, and was renamed the USS Fayette. Now, I don't understand this, but retroactively, in the paperwork, she was classified on February 1st, 1943. So before the Navy got her, they reclassified her as an attack transport. She was commissioned on October 14th and embarked Marines at Norfolk, Virginia for transportation to Pearl Harbor, where she arrived on the 21st of December, 1943. The Fayette was active in Asia-Pacific campaigns, culminating in being at Iwo Jima on February 19th to March 6th, 1945. She was decommissioned on March 6, 1946. On July 22nd, 1947, the Fayette was sold to Robin Line, which was part of Seas Shipping, S-E-A-S, Shipping, and was renamed at that point Robin Gray. The New York Times, on August 15th, 1947, article notes the newest acquisition in the Robin Line fleet, quote, the newly converted combination cargo passenger ship Robin Gray, the third of a sister team rebuilt for the African service of the Robin Line, sailed from the company's Erie Basin pier yesterday with 12 passengers and a full cargo of 11,000 tons. Quote, the Robin Gray is a C3 vessel considered by many shipping men the best of the Maritime Commission standard designs. She can maintain a sea speed of more than 17 knots and will make the run to Cape Town in 16 and a half days. 4 of the vessels still to be redelivered are also C3 types, and 2 are the company's own design. The line will maintain weekly service to South Africa and Portuguese East Africa, and a 40 nightly service to the British East Africa. In addition to its own ships, it is now using Victory freighters under the charter from the Maritime Commission. So, sometime during the mid-1950s, the Robin Gray was chartered by the Maritime Sea Transportation Service once the Korean War began. According to the research by our very own Phil Lacavera here, he says that the Robin Gray started embarking elements of the 1st Marine Division on December 11, 1950 from Hungnam and sailed to Busan. She departed Busan on December 19th for Hungnam and arrived on December 21st and docked on December 22nd. There's a lot of parallels between the Robin Gray being in Hungnam at the very same time at the Meredith Victory was there. There she embarked 280 military personnel and 140 vehicles and sailed on December 23rd, 1950 for Yokohama, Japan. On February 20th, 1951, the New York Times article, in a New York Times article, Vice Admiral C.T. Joy, command of the Naval Forces Far East, cited the captains of the Robin Gray and her sister ship, the Robin Kirk, for the high caliber of their performance. The article highlights the skills of Captain Richard Ryan of the Robin Gray. Quote, Captain Ryan's part in the evacuation was highlighted by his negotiation of 2 miles of crowded anchorage in a blinding blizzard at the Hungnam without a pilot. At the time he moved up the recently mine-swept channel strictly on his radar, a report of the incident quoted the vessel's master as maintaining that he had the best possible pilot for the trip. He sat on his shoulder all the way up the channel. Now, I don't know if that's his guardian angel or parrot. You know, it just doesn't really give you an indication one way or the other. Captain Ryan, who commanded vessels during World War II, compared the thunder of the gun at Hungnam to air raids he experienced at Malta. This is a good time for me actually to share E.K. Bryan's observations as a deck rating on the Robin Gray. He told me, now the date's wrong, but he gave me this 40 years later, so he knows it was at Christmas time. But he says, on Christmas Day 1950, EK was aboard the SS Robin Gray in the harbor of Hungnam. Quote, she completed her loading of U.S. Army and Marine personnel and their tracking and rolling vehicles and set sail. She was one of the last vessels to depart from Hungnam before the Chinese troops entered the city. While they were loading, the battleship Missouri was offshore and blasting away at the mountains, which the Chinese troops were descending from into the city. EK noted that there were so many Chinese troops that they looked like a continuous line of ants circling the mountain as they descended. When the Robin Gray sailed into Hungnam Harbor, they mistakenly entered a mined area that was at the mouth of the harbor. The Navy personnel in the harbor quickly signaled the vessel of its predicament. The captain ordered all stop and then carefully went astern until they were clear of the area. She sailed on Christmas Day, actually December 23rd was when she sailed, for Yokohama, Japan, where she discharged the troops and equipment. Then she sailed for Baltimore, where EK signed off. On signing off, he took a bus to from Baltimore to Michigan, where he used his pay to buy a brand spanking new 1951 Chevrolet. 16 U.S. merchant ships were cited by the Korean government and received the South Korean presidential citation. Among these 16 vessels were the Robin Gray and the Meredith Victory. That's the medal. After the Korean War, the Robin Gray returned to seas line and was running to South Africa again. In 1957, Moore McCormick Lines acquired the Robin Line, and the Robin Gray came under the Mormac colors. With the Vietnam War, the Robin Gray returned to military service and saw action. The USMM.org website notes that on May 12, 1969, quote, 5 merchant ships were attacked on Long Tao River. SS Robin Gray was the only merchant ship hit by rocket or rocket grenade, causing minor damage and wounding 1 merchant seaman. On April 7, 1971, Mormac Lines sold the Robin Gray to Verity Maritime Company, who renamed the ship the SS Gray. On January 24, 1972, Verity sold the SS Robin to Konghua Iron and Steel Works Enterprises in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, where she was scrapped. And so I wanted just to share that with you, of this ship, of another one of our merchant ships, being such a heroic activity, and the privilege that I had of working for that month or so with E.K. Bryan, the man who danced across the desk and never hollered at us as ABs. Okay. Thank you very much.